Hello, friends. Welcome to Pod Maverick presents group therapy. Why are we doing group therapy when there's not a game? That's probably something you're interested in. To be quite honest, it's because this whole thing, this whole week, this whole month has absolutely sucked. The Mavericks are in a pretty bad spot. I'm kind of sad. And frankly, I also want to get more familiar with using this app. If you guys will remember way back in the day when I was doing green rooms and locker rooms for the first time, I would do these on Fridays just to kind of check the pulse of the team, check the pulse of what people out there were thinking. And now we're back. So I'm going to post that we're live on Twitter. My boss called me 1 minute before the show started. That was really fun. And so I'm sorry that I'm a few seconds late, but here we are. All right. So I'm going to post the show here. Here's the link to our live show. Just great podcasting so far, but here we are. Hope everyone's doing okay. If you're curious as to how all this operates, you will want to hop into the comments up the posted link is the StreamYard link, which you can click on. You get taken to a waiting room, and then I'll bring you up on stage to talk about it. And we will see what's going on. That's a delight to join the show here. Thank you so much, SLD. Miha says hello from Slovenia. If you want to join, again, guys, all you got to do is have access to a phone. We did this the other night. We're about to bring up my man Chris Haley, who is waiting in the comments. Only got a few people in here so far. I'm going to say this a few times during the show because it's really helpful. If you have not subscribed to our channel, please do so. I will try to get these live show postings up in advance, and then you can see that on the feed and click notify me, and it will tell you via your apps with what's going on as to when we go live. So, we got a few people trickling in. It's a bit of an early show. We'll see how things are going, and let's bring up my man, Chris. Chris, welcome to the show. What's going on, bub?
Hey, Kirk, how's it going?
Good. Nice to see you.
Oh, finally, after a couple of years, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Just I guess looking forward to tonight's game, at least for the Timberwolves and Lakers, right? So this is a question. I haven't looked it up. We don't have the tiebreaker against the Wolves, do we?
Oh, I'm glad you. So this is a good thing to kind of bring up right off the top of the show. Josh Bowe, within the last hour, basically got into the weeds and started looking at what's happening in the West. And folks, part of why I did this group therapy is because it is bleak, very, very bleak. So Josh wrote this. Here's where I'm gonna flip over to the actual story so that people can see it, and we'll see what's going on here. Josh says, here's where things get tricky. Out of the 4 teams in the play-in spots ahead of the 11th place Mavericks. So we got the Pelicans, we have the Timberwolves, we have the Los Angeles Lakers, we have Oklahoma City Thunder. Here's the Mavericks down here, okay? Outside looking in right now. Now, of those 4 teams, here are the ones the Mavericks have won the head-to-head tiebreaker with. Just
my
God. The Lakers.
And I had the feeling that I think off the top of my head, I think it was just the Lakers that we had the tiebreaker. That this really sucks. Mm-hmm. We're absolutely in the worst spot, and we got 5 games to either go up or down. God, if the Lakers win tonight, it's it wouldn't even really matter. I mean, we would have to for sure win out, win 5 straight games, and with this team,
I mean, we haven't won 5 straight games. I got my friend Dwight. I think his handle is 2. What is it here? It's some numbers to start. It's 514 to 217. Everybody knows him. He does the 21 going on 77 show with SJ, and he was like, well, I really think they can win these 5 of these next 5 games. It's they haven't won 5 in a row since the 7 in a row streak.
Yeah, and that was kind of a fluke. That was a fraud right there because we were playing, horrible teams then, right?
It's really dark.
God, so you really have to just focus in on the Lakers. I don't really know I had to look it up, how many games they have left, but we're going to completely root against them, obviously, the rest of the way. And God, the most Maverick thing would happen right now is that we would go like 4-1 and the Lakers would win half their games and we would still be out. Man, I just don't want to give up that draft pick, and I don't want to just end up in that bottom 11 period. Because then, like you said, like from the other day, I asked that question. I mean, we really couldn't move up to the 10th spot, right? As far as the draft odds, I mean. So.
Okay, so let me pull up the standings here. We still can fall. Like, that's the thing. It's just we
need the Bulls to win. We need the Bulls to win too.
Well, and we play the Bulls on the second to last game of the year.
Oh, of course we do. Oh.
So they're still really trying to make it. And the Mavericks, it's just they're so screwed. The Bulls also only have a top 4 protected pick, so they really don't have an incentive to play. So let me do the screen share again, because I think this is helpful for kind of illustrating the darkness of this situation. Let's go ESPN standings. Here we go. So we're looking at the whole league. So you get to the league down here. Here's the Mavericks. It's like they're at 11, right? And so over these next few games, the Mavericks do have the opportunity to fall down in here. It'll be difficult, but just because of the way some of these other, it's like the Portland Trailblazers are super tanking. It is remarkably bad. The Jazz are still kind of putting up fights here and there because these teams, like, again, we talk about this at length. Players do not tank. Yeah. That is kind of a given that we are all well aware of. Organizations tank, but the Mavericks just have bad players. Like, if they were to sit Luca or Kyrie, it becomes infinitely harder to hang out and to do this. It's really kind of shocking. But over these next few games, could Dallas fall? Like, so they play Miami and Atlanta Saturday, Sunday, back to back. First of all, they've been in Miami with 3 days, like 3 days in Miami. So I think they might look like they have been in Miami for 3 days, and that is a difficult town. And so
I had this bad feeling though. Like, let's say if they do sit the last maybe couple games of the season, sit Kyrie and Luca. I swear to God, if Theo Pinson and McKinley Wright have these great games where we end up beating the Bulls, like, just going to drive us nuts there. I mean, I don't even want to even like say I want us to lose it all, but this just sucks where we're at, man. God,
no, it is that kind of bad. It's bleak in a way that, because, to go back to the standings talk, they're on the outside looking in for the play-in. They're on the outside looking in for the top 10. It's a special kind of hell that you've been asking about for the better part of the year. Like, kind of as we would stumble, you'd pop into our rooms and say, hey, where are we with this? Like, what's going on? And it's really something. I cannot believe.
And lastly, who would be that team that ends up cashing in on all our mistakes? It's the freaking Knicks. Brunson and whatever. I honestly don't even know much about the college players or the ones that are coming in, but they're saying that this draft class is pretty good. Even, if it's the 10th seed or a 10th pick or 9th pick, I mean, you're still going to have a solid wing defender. God, we need one of those players, but I don't know. This really sucks where we're at, because I was looking forward to going to a playoff game, but I guess I'm going to go to a Dallas Stars game. So to be my first one, I lived in DC like you. I've been to many Capitals games, but I guess I might be going to a Stars game soon. So,
man, I love basketball. Don't get me wrong. Live hockey is awesome.
Yeah.
Even if it's bad live hockey, bad basketball reeks.
Yeah.
And
especially
it's just a different deal.
This is definitely the most disappointing. And I'm not just saying this lightly. I mean, I've been a fan for 23 years. This has to be the absolute most disappointing season of all time, because since I've been a fan, just the whole, you have Luca, and then you end up having Kyrie, and then we're like historically bad on defense. It's just been a bad season. But let's just see what happens tonight against the Lakers and Timberwolves, and maybe the Lakers will lose, and we'll have a glimmer of hope.
Yes, that's kind of the best thing we have going for us, is a glimmer of hope. You got anything else before
I'm on the camera? You can check this out.
Let me see.
Ticket. You see it there?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's my actual ticket that I went to the game.
That's pretty awesome. I have to figure out, like, you guys can tell behind me, like, I'm slowly adding stuff to the room here and there. I have this this is just terrible. This is terrible video casting, but I don't, you guys don't mind. Like, so in my yeah, cool. I have to have my office door open because I don't have a lighting above me. Do you see that up there of Dirk shooting over Wade?
Oh wow.
There was this company that came out, I don't know, mid-teens, called Rare Inc. And all they had was licensed NBA photos, that, like the Getty stuff, and then they put it on prints. And I have like 2 or 3 of them. They're all just amazing. But I love stuff like that. I love seeing people's stuff. I would do a whole Mavs podcast just on seeing people's stuff.
Yeah. So and I just don't want us to, at the end of the day, be like, oh, at least they won it in 2011. I don't want to be saying that the rest of my life. Like, we got to. We got to get one with Luca at some point. It'd just be a travesty if he ended up being 28, 30 years old, and then he ends up learning all these lessons at the Mavs' expense, and then ends up balling out for the Nuggets or whatever, down the road. That's thinking dark times here, but I don't know. Anything can happen in a season. Trades, crazy things can happen where, we hit lightning in a bottle like last year. I mean, I don't know. There's ups and downs, but let's just take it one day at a time, and hopefully we'll get something good out of this, at least maybe the draft pick. So, well,
you are the man for kicking us off. I really appreciate your time, Chris.
Thanks, Kirk. Appreciate it.
Okay. So we got 4 people in the waiting room right now. One of them is Brianzillam, Mavs Moneyball contributor. And then we have my man, Tim Cato. And and then Dalton Trigg too. So guys, I'm going to have to bring Tim up because Tim is an actual working reporter, working hard right now. Tim Cato, what's going on?
What up?
How are you?
I am transcribing shit. And so when I transcribe stuff, I look for any opportunity to not do that. And I saw
what are we transcribing?
Just finished a Klay Thompson interview I did a few weeks ago. So
that's pretty cool.
Talking about should I say? I don't know when this story is running, so
well, there are 28 people in this live stream. We're not getting a lot of traction quite yet. It's going to take me months to build up an actual audience. We only have 500 subs. And so it's like there'll be a cresting point where I think people will join these regularly. But I'm just like, I'm trying to get experience with the platform. So what's going on?
I did Dennis Smith Jr. too. I can say it. I'm talking about dunks. Kirk, are you aware of the basketball phenomenon known as dunking?
Other teams have had it. I have seen the Dwight Powell dunks, the rare Luca Doncic dunk, similar as like a Luca Doncic salad, things that just aren't happening very often. But tell me more.
Just about dunking, how it hurts, stuff like that. So it should be a good feature.
That's cool.
Yeah, So I talked to Dennis Smith Jr. Actually, I talked to Austin Rivers, and he kept saying, how people have just like these little patterns of speech. He kept saying, you know what I mean? And every single time, I remember 3 months ago when I did this interview, I had to resist the urge of being like, no, Austin, I do not know what you mean. I have never dunked in my life.
So there is a service that Brianzillam, who's waiting to talk, shared with me called Descript.com that transcribes stuff.
Yeah, I've used a few over the years.
Do you not like those?
It depends on the interview. Long interviews, yes. Short interviews, kind of helps me to actually listen back and get an idea of how they're saying it, what they're saying it, the context I'm saying it, stuff like that. If I'm, and usually for an interview, a lot of the times I know what I'm using. So if it's like an hour long and there's a bunch of filler, yeah, I do use Auto AI to do stuff like that. But
I understand. So
anyway,
this is industry nonsense for people that I'm interested in. Tell me, so what is on your mind as we slog through these final 4 games?
It's 5, isn't it?
5 games. Yeah. Shows you where my head is.
Well, you said 4 and I thought, well, could be that. What is on my mind? I wish I had a good answer.
I mean, do you agree with what I was just talking about with Chris, that the Mavericks are in like the ultimate, like they're in the worst possible situation of both ends between not being in the top 10 and like this could be, I'm trying not to panic because I don't think panicking is healthy, but it's from a fan perspective, like this is on the edge of like an abyss like very similar to how, and this is a terrible time, but do you remember when they lost out on Mike Conley and Hassan Whiteside, and it was like, oh no, we're not, and then they had to go Hassan Harris. Like, it's similar to that. Like, they don't have a lot of choice.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, texted me recently something about, I like the idea of the Mavs adding a top 10 pick to a core of Luca, Jaden, Hardy, and Josh Green.
So do I.
I think everybody likes that idea, but that is not a core that is going to turn it around and get back to the conference finals next year. That is a core that shifts this team very clearly not into Luka's rookie year, not that bad, but it shifts the team back into a little bit of a building phase.
Maybe what they should have had in year 2 if they didn't have Porzingis.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we can go back and look at how they built the team. And I know that you guys do this constantly, and you should. I think there's a lot of value in really examining how teams are built and how the Mavericks both messed it up, but also were unfortunate in some ways. Mike Palucci, my 77 Minutes co-host, my old editor, has a theory that not only were the Mavs just constantly over the past decade plus, the Mavericks have been a step behind in so many ways. The examples being, the CBA. You guys are the number one people who talk about this, but the CBA, the Mavs thinking, Mark Cuban thinking that just having cap space would be enough to sign players. Yeah. One that is a little bit more unfortunate is the idea of Kristaps Porzingis and trading for him when drop coverage centers were all the rage. That's where NBA.
This is his great take. I love this take.
Fantastic take. And within a year of that trade, the NBA was already shifting to switching and mobility as the number one asset that you can have from a center defensively, from a big man on that end. And it's a really good take. And it's not entirely the Mavs' fault that the NBA, I don't know if you or I predicted this. I'm sure some teams did. They clearly did not fully. There's 100 reasons. There's plenty of reasons why they traded for Kristaps Porzingis, but the idea of him as a defensive, that he was going to be their best defensive player, that was absolutely true. That's what they felt he could and would be for them. And, brush all the offense aside, he was not that player. And the injuries played a factor in it. He's been decent this year on the defensive end, but he is not the type of player that can ever be, a top 10 or even a top 30 probably defensive player, even if he has value on that end. And so, yeah, that's where the team is. And they made the decisions that put them in a situation where even adding a top 10 pick or trading it, I almost have to wonder is it better to go get a top 10 pick? Is it better to have a top 10 pick and trade it? Or is it better to have those 2 first rounders that you can trade? Like, I wonder which of the 3 is most valuable.
To me, so drafts are very different, come and go. But next year's draft is already considered worse than this year's. And I just like the it's the gambler, like, we're finally gonna win one. Dalton Trigg, who's waiting to talk. We talk about this all the time. It's like the Mavericks are due to one day to have a piece of good lottery luck. I don't know if it'd be this year, but I just can't help but think that, either if they were to luck into a top 4 pick, that's franchise shifting. If they were to stay at 10 or 9, that's a different conversation, because then I think you do have to consider moving the pick. But it's just, I can't also, and this is just, hear me out here, because you've covered the team longer than I have. The draft is fun to talk about. Like, I would love to talk about not Kyrie Irving for 2 months. Like, as much as I like him, it's I don't want to, like, Mavs social media like goes down the toilet bowl because there's just like, we run out of stuff to talk about, and draft is fun. So it's like, that's really where I am right now. So
I agree. I hope they have a pick for that reason. If they do, there is probably more value in trading it. But it's fun to have young players. It's fun to have young prospects. It's been very, the only redeeming, the only redemptive thing about this season is Jaden Hardy.
Yep.
And
I thought Josh has looked good at times. We have to figure out why Josh turns into a pumpkin when Luca and Kyrie play. Like, that's something for scientists to study. But I've liked what I've seen in spots.
What really is that?
It's really peculiar. It's like he becomes early stage Dorian Finney-Smith, where it's like, okay, I'm going to do the one thing I'm on the court to do. And it's like, no. What makes you fun, Josh Green, is the fact that none of us know what the hell you're going to do next, including the coaching staff and your teammates. Like, go be the weird X factor. That's my hope.
And what's funny is he's such a fast-tempoed guy that you think that, and I guess he was pretty good when it was just Kyrie, right?
Yep.
But he found ways to be effective even with Luca. Although maybe if we really look back kind of with this theory in mind, he was always much more effective in the non-Luca minutes than with the Luca minutes, because he is just kind of chaotic. He's just a guy who kind of like it almost seems like he needs the pace and tempo to be as good as he can be.
That's an interest. The pace and tempo thing. I like that. That's a really good thought. It's a really good thought.
Yeah.
Well,
Anyway, that's what I have. I'm in my Miami hotel room. They gave me a damn apartment. Seems like there's like a bedroom over there, man.
Hey, you got to enjoy life on the road a little bit, because you know what? You might not be traveling very much unless you get to go do something special if the Mavericks aren't in the playoffs.
I think they're going to make me do some playoffs, whether the Mavs make it or not.
Okay.
So, I'm not a rooting man. I do not have
not anymore.
They
beat that out of you in like 2013.
It's so funny. Even if I had rooting interest in the Mavs, which really has faded, like, what would be stronger than that is rooting interest in what is best for me.
Good stories. No, good stories, because like it's liking going to work. And this season has sucked in that regard for everyone. I mean, there were at certain points in the NBA season, particularly during the first 40 games, you'd go to ESPN.com and 4 of the like top 10 stories would be bad NBA news, be it injury, be it something. And it's just like, this has just been, it's not a great season. But thank you for taking part of your time and hanging out with me. People don't want to hear me. They want to hear people like you. So, and you had a podcast come out yesterday, which is on my feed to listen to. 77 Minutes in Heaven. Who was on with you yesterday?
It was Mike Palucci. I was very sleepy.
Sure.
We'll bring it with our whole cohort of co-hosts next week.
Killer.
So that will be more fun. Not that, you should always listen to my podcast, but
you should.
Yeah, but all right, I'm going to go. Thank you for distracting me from transcription. I am going to go enjoy some Miami tonight. So,
outstanding. Just like the Mavericks.
Don't worry about me. Do not worry about me. Tim Cato, doing great.
Good, man. We'll talk soon. Let's hang out when you get back in town.
Yes, sir.
All right. Bye. Okay, so coming up next is my man, Dalton Trigg. But in the meantime, if you want to talk, you want to click that link that's pinned to the top of the YouTube comments. All right. You'll come into a waiting room where I will then bring you on stage. If you don't have the greatest audio or video set up, honestly, I don't care. I want to talk to you. I want to look at you and hear what you have to say. We had a great time the other night after the game. We got a pretty good amount of people in here for a Friday afternoon. Maybe we'll do it again. All right, Dalton, what is happening, my guy?
What's up?
Are you on your phone?
I am. I don't have my laptop with me. So
turn your phone.
Hold on. Let me.
There we go.
Hey, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what's happening?
Not much. I'm just trying to kill off the rest of the day.
Sure, that's why I did this.
I feel for Tim Cato. I also hate transcribing. I'm glad that our guy Grant Afseth, he's kind of taken the brunt of that this year. And I'm really happy he has, because I can't stand it.
Well, what's on your mind today? What are you thinking during as we kind of get through this process?
I'm kind of, I don't know, man. It's kind of like with what Kyrie Irving said, being at peace and everything. That's kind of how I feel. I mean, obviously you'd like to see them make the playoffs, but I mean, they don't control their own destiny anymore. They got to have help from the outside. If they don't make it, there's a chance they can keep their pick, which, like you said previously, we're hoping beyond all hope that that they could keep that pick and possibly, go up in the draft for the first time in franchise history, which, it's crazy to me how bad their luck is in the lottery. Having the same odds, that one time, what was it, 2019, had the same odds as the Grizzlies and the Pelicans, and the Grizzlies and the Pelicans end up 1-2, and the Mavs end up, I think they went down a spot.
Yeah. No, and it's so there's a scene in Friday Night Lights that's, based on a true story. And we're talking about, I mean, the movie Friday Night Lights, where to get into the playoffs, they have to do a coin flip, a 3-team coin flip, where the 2 teams that correctly flip the coin get in. And that's what that was, where and the Mavericks were on the shit end. Now, why were they on the shit end? Was it because Devin Harris went bananas and because Luca's guy, who was it? Big guy from Tunisia. Yes, Salah Mejri. God. Remember our man Chuck Cooperstein, he's like, this is a 1-guy draft and Zion Williamson. I still remember arguing with him about that. Guess what? It was a pretty dang good draft. Oh, well, what are you going to do?
Well, obviously you don't want to say it's a given that they're not going to make it, because there's still 5 games left.
Yep.
They're pretty close to I think the Thunder is the team directly above them. It's a 1-game. The Thunder have a 1-game lead. Really, it's a 2-game lead because they have the tiebreaker.
Yep.
But they have a really tough schedule to end the season. They're at Indiana tonight. I don't know who all is playing for Indiana, but they're playing at Indiana. You
might be suiting up. Rick Carlisle might play some minutes. Yeah. They're masterfully just throwing out shit on the table. It's bad.
But it's tough. They still play the Suns. I forgot who else they play. They might play the Warriors again. They have 3. I know they have 3 of their last 5 are really, really tough. And then you have the Pacers game on the road. So you never know what can happen there. I think the Pelicans, I don't really trust the Pelicans, even though they've been playing good as of late. The Lakers, they could still catch the Lakers. I mean, there's a lot of different possibilities, and they own the tiebreaker against the Lakers. The only team above them they do own the tiebreaker with. So, I don't know. We'll see. It would be, if the Mavs ended up making the playoffs, then you're going to see my full, full optimism.
It's fun. Why would you not?
My screen name there, Mavs Ted Lasso. That's where it's really going to come out if they make it, because it's like you have Luca and Kyrie. Luca is just a basketball god in the playoffs. His playoff, I remember
his numbers are better than you remember every time.
Yeah. I think it was Jeff Van Gundy during that Sixers game on ESPN Wednesday. Sometime during that game, I was listening to the broadcast, and he was just like, I just randomly wanted to look up Luca's playoff numbers, because he just wanted, I don't know, look at him, and he was just like, holy crap.
Yeah, they're ridiculous.
Thought it was. So look, if they get Luca and Kyrie semi-healthy together in a playoff series, who knows what can happen. But I don't know, man. I'm just, like I said, I'm at peace with whatever happens. I just hope if they don't make it in, that something good happens with that draft pick, because it's been brutal for years, and this team really needs something. They've messed up so much over the last handful of years.
Well,
really,
can I got to read this comment, because this goes with exactly what you're saying. Marksman 18 says, when Dallas drafted Doncic, I was promised a good organization by the Slovenian NBA reporters, but since then I see nothing but a clusterfuck and a delusional owner in his midlife crisis. Bingo! God, I love interactive media.
There you go.
So,
well, look, we'll have to see how it goes, but I'm just, oh shoot, I don't know what.
Good.
Normally I would do this on my laptop. This
is great. That's why I like doing it this way, because it is this easy. Well, I'm going to let you go here, but before we go, everybody needs to know that Dalton is turning fucking 30 years old tomorrow, which is disgusting. I thought he was in his 30s already. He's not, and I hate him. So I want that on the video record.
Final hours of my 20s. It feels, you said it's great. That's a fact that I'm still in my 20s. I think it's gross that I'm actually starting to turn 30 because everybody says when you turn 30, it's just, downhill from there. But
no. Every year is great. Look, I started the YouTube channel at 38. There's always possible growth. So I see my man Shaco in the comments. Welcome, my guy. We got some good folks in here. Share, okay? I need y'all to be sharing and talking about that. Dalton, you got anything else before we go?
No, that's it. I appreciate you having me on.
Happy
I
Friday.
love the pod rebrand. The logo looks nice. I mean, I think you're. I'm glad you're part of the Blue Wire.
That's right. We're part of the same Blue Wire podcast company. That's right.
So
Dalton's
this
over there.
We'll have to do cross content together.
That's right. You guys subscribe to the Step Back Mavs. Check out DallasBasketball.com. Actually, I have a DallasBasketball.com article pulled up I was going to talk about. We'll see if we get to it. Thanks, Dalton. Talk soon.
All right. We'll see you.
All right, we got a lot of people waiting to talk, so let's do this. Coming up next is my man Brianzillam. He's a Mavs Moneyball contributor, and I made him wait, even though he was like the second person in here. Sorry, Brian.
No, it's all good. Can you hear me, Kirk?
I can. You sound this is much better than the other night, but I can tell you're on your desktop now. So what's up?
Yes. When in doubt, I'm gonna just not even fuck around with my phone.
Sure.
I'm gonna go directly desktop. But no, Tim, Cato, and Dalton always take priority over me. I'm just me. So
Sure.
yeah. Happy Friday, everybody. Happy birthday, Dalton. Fuck you for finally turning 30.
It's angering.
Yeah. No, like it's better shit comes up as you're getting older. Like I can contest to that. So
you just can't eat like you used to. That's the worst part about getting older is the inability to eat. Like things just start disagreeing with you.
Right. Now I will say, and you can't drink as much.
See, no. At pandemic, I became a professional drinker of alcohol. So
interesting.
I was drunk on those podcasts. Not anymore. Can't do that now on video.
Gotta behave a little bit.
That's right.
It's Friday. Get your solos ready, people who are watching and listening. It's been I don't want to blame me for having my first official season as a member of Mavs Moneyball. Maybe I'm the bad luck for this team sucking, because this has been an interesting experience just throughout the staff and not only the fan, because I feel like the fans and the staff of Mavs Moneyball are going through the same thing where nobody wants to do anything or watch
That's correct.
team anymore.
No one wants to write anything. Everyone is sad.
But I find it actually fascinating because assuming, if the worst of the worst happened and the Mavs finish 11th, they don't make the play-in, don't have the draft pick. I think there are so many different angles that you could talk about. Because I don't think there's really like a right answer ultimately, because there's so many different variables on like how we got to this point. There's not like an overnight fix that you can do to fix.
Oh no, no.
That's why to me as a nerd, like I'm so fascinated. And I know I probably talk too much in the Slack channel anyway, but I wanted to ask you just directly because obviously it's interesting to see kind of like the DFW Metroplex like media like aspect that finally get on board where like Kid needs to go. But for you personally, if Kid and Nico were a package, do you keep Nico if they got rid of Kid?
No, I don't see. Well,
see, I only ask because there's so many different variables of Nico because they supposedly Kid and him are good buddies, right? But then I want to go back to the Christian Wood thing. That is the weirdest thing in this kind of their whole entire relationships, because obviously Nico wanted Wood, but then Jason Kidd, he said no, which if they're a package deal and communicating all the time, it just seems like they were on two separate universes. Like when that actually happened, I mean, and then maybe Kidd to a degree was kind of right on Wood being like, I wouldn't have been a petty asshole to him like he was the entire year, but that to me is kind of like weird and interesting. And yeah, they hit on Jaden Hardy.
Sure.
But like, if he's kind of just there just to be cap space guy, if we were resetting the button on everything, wouldn't you want a nerdy guy from Memphis being your GM? Like that's just me because
that's where it's like if we're building a 2K roster, yes, but because there's the relationship element involved, I'm not sure what they can do. Because the thing that I have to be fair about is that Kid and Nico came into a situation that was pretty brutal as is.
Fair.
Okay. Like for some reason, Nico gets credit for the Reggie signing, and that based off how we know free agency works, it was done before the season was over.
Right.
So it's like, but that said, they've done okay. Like they tried some things, but they didn't try enough, in my opinion. And the Mavericks are just on this like linear path. And, you know, the fact that the Mavericks haven't recouped any draft assets ever is brutal. I mean, their second round picks were getting handed out like candy, and the Mavericks didn't have any options. So,
right. And the reason I asked, should Nico go if Kid goes, is if they are, you know, if there was that ultimate timeline where they actually brought in a coach, I would want his guy to be in there because that's the problem because Kid and Nico had to come in and clean up the mess. You know, they, like you said, they weren't giving like necessarily the best situation, but if there was a new coach coming in and he has an idea of a roster and Nico has a different idea, I don't want that. I want like, I mean, to me, if it's me, I hire a different GM first and then you hire the head coach. The way they did it was so convoluted and just backwards because the GM should always have control over the head coach, but you know, Cuban's going to Cuban and do whatever the hell he wants. So there has to be some streamline of communication where in my world, hypothetically, give me one of those nerdy people in Memphis that we can steal. And then at that point, whether they want to go through a college route or maybe there's an assistant out there that needs an opportunity, whether it be Sam Cassell.
Well, you have to know. That's the real thing is you have to have someone in mind. And so my Kid feelings aside, I actually don't think the Mavericks are prepared to do this, which means just like the hiring of Kid, it would be kind of a half-cocked action. And I'm not interested in that. The devil you know is sometimes better than the devil you don't. And that's sort of where I am at the moment. But Brian, you got anything else? Because I see some folks getting, restless. So
if they
switch back over.
I'll let them jump in and I'll hang out and listen. But
you are the man for hanging out, though. I really appreciate it.
Of course, later, buddy.
All right, talk soon. Okay, coming up next. So my friend Derek is waiting to talk. I'm going to pull him up here in a second, but I see Janice, who looks to be outside, and anybody that is waiting to talk outside, welcome. What's up?
Hi. A bit nervous. New guy here, so so it's kind of. I mean, like I said on the
chat,
on the comment on the YouTube, right? I was kind of. I'm not an NBA guy, but I'm a sports guy, so I know how things should be done, right? And you have to. We were promised a good organization that is well run and with a good owner and stuff like that, and instead all we have is strange trades. Dallas always somehow trading downwards, never up, right? I mean, if you look at, let's say, Porzingis trade, right? We traded a lot for Porzingis, and in the end, all that is left is an expiring Kyrie and Davis Bertans. And in the meantime, you lost Brunson, you lost Dorian, you lost Dinwiddie and a couple of guys that were useful, and you now have a roster that is junk, right? So so basically that's all I had to say. So
well, I appreciate the comment, and I'll address it here and let you go. But thank you for it, because I really appreciate you coming up on stage and talking.
Thank you. Bye.
So this is tough. This is really tough for me because I am a Dallas fan. I love Luca, second favorite player behind Dirk. But I bought the idea that the Mavericks were a well-run organization for a very long time, because what the Mavericks do as an organization are very good about telling you that they're a well-run organization. We know what we're doing. We have a plan. Trust us. We're not done yet. All the stuff they leak to local media, which I am ostensibly part of, but I don't really participate other than doing this sort of thing. And so they're so good at marketing themselves as smart that it's taken people a long time to come around to the fact that they may not be dumb, but they've certainly not done a very good job. And that's, Ryan just says in the chat, they have not continued to innovate. So it's really unfortunate. It's very disappointing for me. Okay, coming up next is my friend Derek. Derek's been waiting for a while. I feel bad for not adding him earlier. Derek, what is going on, my guy? You're muted right now. Give you a second to rejoin here. I think he was at work today, and he just wanted to. Hey, what's up?
There we go. Yeah.
Derek is a Wolves fan, and he's looking down on us. So how is it up there?
Well, I was a Wolves fan until I started covering this team, and I think by the time that the Jimmy Butler fallout happened, and I was like, any part of me that was dormant while I was still doing this as media was killed off then.
Sure.
It's just too much.
I hear that. So what are we thinking today? What is the Wolves' hope for playoffs right now as you're climbing through this?
I mean, beat the Lakers tonight. That's the big one. Because I think if the Lakers win tonight, they take the 7th seed. Wolves go down to 8th. And it's funny, it's like it's the way that things went, and despite all the hand wringing early in the season, I'm kind of surprised they're where they are right now.
Sure.
And like to keep the theme of this stream, like I always thought like the Mavs would be in there, like that's and then unfortunately opens the door for a team like the Lakers. But yeah, it's kind of crazy that they've been able to just tread water until Towns came back, and Anthony Edwards was pretty incredible in getting a real point guard in there around Rudy Gobert, and it's like, okay, well now this team can actually be something and have an identity, which they didn't really have with Russell. I mean, I'm not really a big Russell guy, but there are definitely different styles there that clearly fit better than the other, based on just how things have gone since those trades went down.
Well, taking the big swing is really difficult, but then admitting the elements of the swing don't work and doing something new in season is really hard. And for the Wolves to pivot like they did is pretty impressive. The Mavericks we heard as Mavs fans, we heard for 40 games that, this is fine. This is fine. Yeah. Oh, look, we went on a 7-game win streak where Luca had to average 46 points per win. Like that was somehow it's very difficult because mistakes in team building are hard. And I'm curious as to if Wolves as an organization do this. Do the Wolves organization tell you how smart they are a lot? Is that a thing that happens? Not
really. I think Rosas for a while kept things pretty tight-lipped before, he was dismissed. And, Tim Connolly, not much really seems to, get
operate in the darkness.
Really, yeah, a little more on that. I think when it was more David Kahn, was pretty quick to tell you how smart he thought he was. And that's always kind of a problem when someone's willing to volunteer how smart they are. That usually doesn't wind up working out very well. But yeah, I think one thing too, like when you're looking at like how like these teams are, mid-season, like no one around 40 games in the West, was really doing that great where you'd look like, well, we're 500-ish, but so is everyone else around us. So, it's not time to panic yet. But then all of a sudden, you have the rough couple months or a good couple months, like I think the ways like the Lakers and the Mavericks have gone in sort of opposite directions since the trade deadline. It's just really interesting how this has become, how things have really started to solidify over the last few weeks there. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you came up here and talked. You bought me some minutes as I'm figuring out what's next. You get back to work on this Friday. I guess it's 4:15. Nobody's working. Everybody's just lying about working. So.
I'm done.
All right, man. You have a good day. Thanks for hanging out.
Hey, thanks, Kirk.
I don't know if I've known Derek for years, and I think that might be the first time I've actually talked to him face to face. That's really funny. I love this kind of stuff. All right. Coming up next then is we've had Luca 77 waiting. I don't think it's Luca Doncic, but we're gonna see if it is. Hey, what's going on?
What is going on? I'm not sure what's going on with my phone here. I tried to turn it sideways, trying to get my camera going, but
we can hear you, and that works for me.
That's good enough. That's good enough. So y'all might know me on Twitter as Fire Mark Cuban, or now it's Fire Jason Kidd.
Mm-hmm.
And I know not everybody's a fan of the movement, but I mean, like what Nico said today. I guess how much do we buy into Nico saying that J Kidd is the guy? Like, some people think like, oh, he's just saying that because he has to show support right now. And like, I don't know if they're a package deal or not, but it just seems like there's so many excuses available to Nico and to Mark for Jason Kidd not doing better this year. So they seem like they're ignoring the fact that he can't drop an out of bounds play. They seem like they're ignoring the fact that, you know, they're 0-13. I mean, besides Maxey hitting that shot,
they were 2 games away from a 9-game losing streak where they needed to beat the Spurs in overtime and the Maxey game winner.
Yeah, and so like Jason Kidd, he has a resume that's long enough. It's a big enough sample size as an NBA head coach to see that he is a average or below average NBA head coach. If you remove his little time in the bubble, and I don't know how much stock you can really put into what he did with the Lakers. Yes, he's well respected. Yes, people like him. But as a head coach in the NBA, his resume says that he is not very good. And the eyeball test alone tells you that he does not have any creative or innovative offensive sets. The fact that Kyrie is being buried in the corner when Luka's getting doubled. Christian Wood, Jaden Hardy had 21 DNP coaches' decisions this year, and he had 17, I think it's now 18 games where he played less than 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. Like, is there any other team or any other coach in the league that buries those 2 guys on the bench like that?
Probably, to be honest, yeah. The Hardy stuff is the one area where coaches just don't play rookies. But as to everything else that you said, you probably couldn't see this here talking. I scrolled through Mavs Film Room's timeline, who transcribed a big part of the interview he gave today. You're referencing it was on Ben and Skin's show. And honestly, it's one of these things that teams do. And he can't come out and say anything other than sort of, it's not PR stuff, but they're not going to say, oh, the sky is falling and we're fucked. Like he can't say that. But I did feel like he was, at least in elements of his interview, he said, you know, we all are going to be evaluated. And that's better than nothing, because there's some acknowledgement of the fact that things have really gone poorly. I mean, I think the Mavericks are 4-9 when Kyrie and Luca play together, and almost all of those losses were clutch losses. And, you know, if 2 or 3 or 5 games go different, do we feel completely different about this team? I don't think I would, because I'm kind of categorically out on Kidd and have been since that Lakers loss earlier this year. But I don't know what will cause them to move, my man, because the real challenge is, number one, you got to have somebody to replace him. Number two, you really have to be willing to admit defeat. And that's one thing this team has never, ever been good at, that they failed. My friend Matt Moore is waiting to talk in the comments, and he aggregated the piece several years ago after they lost out on Dwight Howard. So we're talking 2013, God, 10 years ago. Where they had been chasing Dwight Howard for 2 years. They built everything around going to get Dwight Howard. The moment they missed out on Dwight Howard, within an hour, Mark Cuban said, we'll be better off without him. It's just a constant moving of the goalposts. And so everybody that covers the team or follows the team casually is inadvertently, okay, everything's under control. Look at how confident this guy is talking. And it works. And so I don't know. I found the local media tenure, you know, like Bob Sturm of The Ticket is a pretty loud voice in dictating conversation locally. He's kind of out wondering out loud if Kidd is going to be kept. And so it's like that, those conversations are happening at all is really interesting to me. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, and I think too, like it's barely hit the national media a little bit within the last week or two about Jason Kidd and is he the guy, where it was definitely something that was talked about local, but I think like it's seen it on First Take and Jason Williams. So like it's getting a little bit of attention, and maybe I'm delusional. Maybe some have suggested it's a mental illness, but April 5th is Fire Jason Kidd Day at American. April 5th is Fire Jason Kidd Day. And I know that, again, not everybody is down with the movement, down with the revolution, but I generally feel like if we are able to get, say, 1,000 people, 2,000 people, 5,000 people chanting Fire Jason Kidd at the game, does that not put some additional pressure? Does Nico and Mark not hear that? I'm not saying that is the difference, but it certainly has to have an effect if we can get thousands of people chanting that at the AAC.
Here's the problem. Jason Kidd is like 5th on their list of issues. That's kind of, but Jason Kidd is also the easiest thing to handle. So whether they would make him a scapegoat, and scapegoat's not right because he's responsible for stuff, but I see them potentially moving on from him, but it would be one of these things where they come out and Jason Kidd's like, I've agreed to step down as coach kind of thing, not like a firing, like a resignation. Like does that make sense?
Yeah, and I guess because he is so beloved in Dallas because of his time with Dirk, and him and Nico have the relationship, and so like maybe they roll it out like that just for it's a better look, and that way he can come back later and still be accepted by the fan base.
Sure.
I can't imagine.
Be grateful to Kidd the player. I'm just not interested in Kidd the coach.
I cannot imagine them starting next season with Jason Kidd at the helm, and like the idea that he's lost that locker room. I mean, again, they can say everything they want, but it looks clear from the eyeball test that if you come out that flat against Charlotte in back-to-back must-win games, and the idea that he's putting a game plan together, but they're just not executing it, that means they're not listening to you if they're not executing your game plan in must-win games. And so, like, I just don't see how they can keep him, but I also don't think they're going to move on from him because they have injuries, trades, or if we just make shots. They have too many excuses to point at instead of just looking at the raw data and the facts that he's not a good NBA head coach.
Yeah. Well, thank you for hanging out with us.
I appreciate y'all having me on, man. April 5th, Fire Jason Kidd Day. I'll see y'all at the AAC.
You're always welcome back. Talk soon. Okay, coming up next is my man Chico Williams. Let's chat. Tell me what's going on, my friend.
I don't know. Can you see me? Can you hear me? I don't know.
We can hear you. We can't see you, but that's okay. We can work with this where I'm the main one talking. What's going on?
All right, cool. Nice having me up. Yeah, I've been around for the 2003 Western Conference Finals when Dirk got hurt. Yep. I was around for the 2006 finals where it was stolen from underneath our noses. I was around for the We Believe Warriors when we got beaten the first round, but I have never been more depressed watching the Mavericks than I am this season.
It's been not fun, and expectations kind of hurt things, but it's also just been bad basketball.
Yeah, maybe overachieving going to the Western Conference Finals last year was the cause of this, but yeah, it has not been a good season. I don't know. Josh Green is doing his best Aaliyah impression with the back and forth song. Like one game, he's like, "Oh yeah, Josh Green, he could start on this team," and then the next game is like, "Damn, Josh Green, send him to the G League." Like, I don't know what it is with the hesitation when he's out there with Luca and Kyrie. It's mind-boggling. Of course, we know the issue what the Mavericks do face. We need some bigs. Yep. Moxie's hamstring is falling off the bone.
An underrated problem that I don't think is discussed enough.
Yes, and then if Dwight gets hit in the face one more time, he'll look like Sylvester Stallone.
He's still pretty handsome for getting hit in the face that much. It's pretty remarkable.
Telling you, but I think one more full-on season because he's well into his 30s now. Mm-hmm. You know, in your 30s, shit starts to form different.
True.
But yeah, it's not been fun. But this is what happens when you skip the organic building, because that's how good Luca was. Because, you know, we went rookie year, missed playoffs, second year, boom, straight in. You know what I mean? They rushed the trade with KP, boom, didn't work. Rushed another trade, boom, didn't work. Rushed this one, and now what is this? You know what I mean? Like, at some point, we have to face the basketball gods. We cheated the process several times. But if we're going to keep it a buck, Mavs were never really good at drafting players.
They don't try. Like, drafting Luca was the most obvious shit in the world, and they should have kept their pick and taken in the Hawks player who Mark said Cuban didn't want because he wanted the cap space, which they didn't use.
They didn't use it. They could have used the cap space and used Kent Bazemore at the same damn time.
Kent Bazemore, thank you. You're the man.
But it wasn't. But I don't get it. What Mark Cuban should have done was just hire you to do PR or, you know, social media, because you literally willed Luca to the Mavericks. I remember it like yesterday.
Great year being drunk and just yelling about Luca.
But yeah, it's not been fun, but I don't think I've literally watched the full Maverick game since probably, I don't know, February.
Right.
My favorite game of all time is when Jaden and Josh went off against Utah. So that's my favorite game for the season so far, but it's not been fun. We need some change. You know, it's funny that Nico says that, Jason Kidd hasn't lost the locker room. Like, he has the air of the locker room, but they're just not executing. Like, I don't know how contradictory that is. That's funny. That's not how it's supposed to work.
I mean, maybe he hasn't lost the locker room, but like, I feel like every huddle is 1, 2, 3, Cancun. And it's been that way for like 10 games.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And yeah, I just want Luca to know that I too am sad. I'm sad as well.
Well, thank you so much for waiting and talking.
Yeah, man. Well, enjoy your Friday.
All right. Talk soon. All right. Coming up next is my buddy Matt Moore, who I just saw yawn in the thing, and he's probably hey Matt. You guys know Matt Moore from the Action Network and HP Basketball, where he is everyone's favorite follow. What's happening?
How you doing?
I'm fine. I'm just figuring out how to use this thing, and I wanted to do it under less pressure. Like, when I do it at night, my wife has no patience for this. She's like, and my office is off our bedroom, and she's made me do this downstairs. And so it's like, well, where am I doing? I get all these comments like, your sound sucks. I'm like, yeah, I know, because I'm in my living room. I'd have nowhere to do this.
Yeah, so, I gotta set that up. I got a little basement office. I got a comment on the stuff you guys have talked about. Like Lo mentioned it, and you mentioned on the last pod with Josh about Kyrie Luka pick and roll.
Mm-hmm.
So I have one to consider here, and I don't necessarily know this is why, because my feelings on the preferences of your personnel in terms of how they run offense. But I called D'Antoni for an interview before Chris Paul's first season with Houston. And I was like, oh, so are you guys going to like play, like, how often are you thinking that you want to work in Harden, Chris Paul pick and roll, like having small pick and roll? And he was like, almost never. We're almost never going to do that. And I was like, really? And he was like, the problem is if you're playing a good team and you have your two best defenders are going to guard Harden and Chris. Like, they will put their best wing defenders on those two guys, which means that if we're putting them in pick and roll action, I'm not leveraging against a bad defender. I'm literally bringing two defenders that are above average because they have to be to guard those guys to the ball.
Right.
And so the thought process was, you can't, like, if you use that pick and roll coverage, you're not like, I'm trying to think of like a good team that to use this as an example, like the Celtics, right? If it's Smart and Jalen, who's okay, all right, but if it's Smart and Jalen, they're still pretty good. If you put those two guys are guarding Kyrie and Luka, and you run that, well, now all of a sudden, if they decide to blitz, you've got two quality defenders on the ball, or they're just switching it, and you're not gaining any sort of advantage there. Like, there's no way to really game plan that. Now, if you're facing a team that has only one good defender, you can leverage that. But most times there's actually better ways to get that action going. This doesn't mean that the off-ball stuff is not a problem, because, when Luka or Kyrie doesn't have the ball, the other one just kind of like goes and chills out, and it's my turn, your turn, and that's not good. There's no lift, right, from the corner on those pick and rolls or anything like that. But it's something to consider, I think, with the idea. We kind of make it out to be this idea of like, well, if you just run pick and roll with those two guys, with your two best players, it's always going to be good. And you're right that the numbers are excellent. Like Zach pointed out how excellent those numbers are in short sample. But I do kind of wonder, just from a long-term perspective, if Kyrie is retained, it's going to be a thing.
So when Matt is referencing Tim McMahon and Zach Lowe talking, the point when Luka was the ball handler, Kyrie was the screener, there were like 27 actions, something like that. And the point per possession was 1.6. And then when it was reversed, it was 1.5. So like, we're talking ludicrous math here for everyone involved. Now, the problem, I think, was that over the 12 games, it had happened like 30 times. So we're talking less than 2.5 times a game. Since then, it has gone up to, I think, 4. It's more than 4, maybe even 8, which they're running it, I think, is the point. Now, you and I know this. The offense is not the Dallas Mavericks problem. People might not like the way it looks And that's a stylistic preference, but they score the shit out of the basketball, even with like JaVale McGee playing minutes and Reggie Bullock being unable to hit the broadside of a barn. It's the defense.
So I want to ask you about that because, you had the comment the other day about Nick's comment, Angstat, talking about chemistry, right? About how like these guys are all like most of these guys have still played together. So I brought this up the other day. Like I went through the defensive ratings for the Mavericks over the last 5 years, and it's like 17th, 22nd, 24th, 7th.
That 7th is such nonsense. It's based off of one good month.
So like that's the thing, right? Is like was last year just like so I think this is one of the things to kind of learn from this is really I'm not trying to drive the knife in, but like genuinely like last year's success was a negative for Mavericks fans. You got to enjoy.
It's very similar to the Hawks and the Trailblazers.
Yeah, like the Hawks comparisons are crazy. Like makes the conference finals, immediately regresses back to a 500 team, and so like. It really is kind of proof that if you don't have like sustainable long-term growth with a good underpinning, you're in real trouble. Like you have to grow this the right way. And I think, you and I have talked about this, about how the timeline on Luca got shifted up and all those types of things. I do want to ask you that though. In retrospect, with 2020 hindsight, do you wish that they had tanked for a few more years and just?
Oh yeah. I didn't like, so I have tweet evidence. I know that's a lame ass thing to say. I was not a fan of the Kristaps Porzingis trade because of our friend Jared Dubin, who wrote up that Kristaps had 13 lower body injuries before he was traded to the Mavericks. He is a man made out of paper mache, and he's about to sign another 9-figure contract. He's actually played pretty well, but
he's been good.
He was tiered higher than the kind of player he really is. If he's your third or fourth best player, you're going to have an okay team. If he's your second best player, you're going to suck. Sorry, just the nature of basketball. But I really wish they would have waited. The Luca Real Madrid fan, the Real Madrid fans and the Slovenian fans, I remember were telling me this year, were like, Luca is not going to put up with losing. He's not going to do it. Everywhere he's gone, he's won. Now, the challenging and frankly, flat out awful part is if you go look at the Sacramento Kings, you go look at the Oklahoma City Thunder, you go look at the Memphis Grizzlies, all the teams that were around the Mavericks when they drafted Luca in 2018, and you look at the roster side-by-side comparison, what the Dallas Mavericks have done is a basketball war crime. And I have been screaming this for 4 years, only to be gaslit into being told, oh, no, it's fine. It's fine. And it has not been fine. And here we are relying on the good graces of Kyrie Irving. What a dark place to be. Now, I gotta put a caveat with that. Kyrie, the experience has actually been pretty fun. He gives, you and I have talked offline about how certain NBA players simply won't talk basketball. Like they think it's beneath them to answer your questions. Kyrie answers interesting basketball questions when asked about it. I'm not sure if you've seen some of this stuff. Grant Afseth, the DallasBasketball.com, loves asking him nerdy basketball shit. Like, what are you thinking when you're coming off of such and such action? And he'll answer. So I've not hated the Kyrie experience. But that should be a canary in the coal mine because that means things can get worse. Because he's been the light.
When you're like, well, the Kyrie thing's actually been okay, but everything else is terrible. That's concerning.
Yep.
It's crazy because I am usually first in line to blame Kyrie for his role in various disasters, but like on the other end of it, it's been like when the clusterfuck comment came out, everybody was like, eventually it's just you, dude, and like all these kind of comments. I'm like, guys,
and his quote wasn't even that bad.
I'm like, he hasn't done anything. Like, give him time. He'll screw up on his own.
I know. Anyway, I did have something that I wanted to ask you, though, specific. Okay, you're the one who told me this. You're the one who said that if you fire a coach, you better damn well know who you're replacing him with. Like, the Mavericks knew they were going to replace Avery Johnson with Rick Carlisle. Like, that was just written in the stars, and it ended up working. So one of the things I've been talking with a lot of Slovenian fans about is that when Luca was with Real, he was coached by two like basketball lunatics, like legendary coaches who rode his ass hard. I've not pushed back because I really do think Luca needs someone to effectively coach / parent him into challenging him to make him do great. Like there's this incredible clip, I can't remember which coach it was, where this guy's lighting into Luca on the sidelines for fucking up. Luca goes out and drills 3 straight threes to like back break the game. That's the sort of stuff Luca responds to. Like we've seen that for years. I don't see an NBA coach in the modern, like just way this stuff goes down that would be willing to do anything like that at all.
Yeah. There's a couple things here. One, Luca was a lot younger.
I agree. That's when you're 16 and 18, it's like he's lucked to, that's my pushback point, where if he's now 24 and he's one of the 5 best basketball players alive while having beverages, while eating what he wants, and he's learned that he can live life his way. And that's been my pushback.
He's gonna make he's making $35 million a year, and he's like,
you can't tell them nothing.
You can't tell him anything. What are you supposed to be able to do? And like he's going through whatever he's going through, but I just tend to always kind of revert back to really smart GMs, really smart executives have shared this line of thought process, and like they all kind of agree this is true. That everyone talks about culture. For the most part, culture is defined by your best player. Like that's what defines your team. That's what defines your identity. That's what defines your culture. And like that, hearing that and thinking about that has reframed a lot of how I look at various teams. And it's like good and bad. And for a lot of it. And I think you're seeing this with the Hawks. I think the Hawks are trying to like course correct on that because they took on the identity of Trey. I think that's been difficult for them. And so, I think if Luca, I'll put it this way, if Luca wants to be coached harder and wants to be held more accountable, he should probably relay that. Like there needs to be like, and he doesn't have to publicly, right? Maybe he's done it privately. Maybe he said that like he's stormed into the office and like, been like, why don't you guys get some accountability in here? Maybe he's doing that. But I think until you see that kind of a shift, it is okay to be like, this is probably something that he needs to get to, that he needs to like, whether it's holding himself accountable or asking for the organization to hold him more accountable. To me, like there's a gap there in the absence. As far as like coaching goes, that one's, again, that's like really tough, is like try to find it. Like there's not a Rick Carlisle out there right now. Like there's not one of those guys. And so many of these coaches are struggling with the fact that they just are like, I can't get my players to do anything. I can't get them to try. I can't get them to play.
In the chat, we had a Slovenian commenter. I can't remember his first name at this point. His handle in there is Marksman18, but he says Luca needs a coach that possesses with a pedigree that possesses authority. That's all. Not someone watching like Kid. One thing you'll notice is Luca has no problem taking blame, but it cannot be a one-way street. I think that's a great comment, but I also think my pushback would be is that with how much money these guys make now, the superstars, everyone has sort of figured out that they can't do much. I agree that's actually what Luca needs, but a coach with pedigree that will have authority. Phil Jackson's like 80 years old. There's no one left. Jason Kidd is a first Hall of Fame point guard with he's one of the NBA's 50 best players of all time, and he can't get through to Luca. Now, I will say, I don't think he's tried. I think he's been big time. I'm gonna coax and I'm gonna rely on my 10 assistants to do the job. That's actually, I think, a bigger criticism of Kidd than anything, is he's just been sitting there. You've seen the games. He doesn't do the work.
Right.
Anyway,
so like, trying to find the right personality, I think, is going to be like a real challenge. I think it's going to be difficult, but also like a lot of this is going to be on Luca to like establish like winning habits. And whatever reason that's not happening, like there's a reason that in our Slack, I do love that nickname, the Crown. Like Heavy's the Crown, man. Like this is how it goes. If you're going to be the MVP favorite 2 seasons in a row,
and you will be next year too.
And not even really get within range. Like it's on you to really be able to make this run. You're going to have to like up this level of stuff. Oh, I like Ryan Parker's idea in there of getting Draymond. That's a good idea.
Well, that's what, that's kind of like what, if you're not going to be held accountable by your coaching staff, then you have to be held accountable by a peer. That was why I pushed so hard for Goran. But one of the things that was pointed out to me is that even this past summer, Luca didn't really have much interest in listening to Goran. Like, one of the reasons they lost is because the night before they were fucking around and out late having drinks and, maybe not drinking, but they were up late and they didn't perform their best. And that was like covered by some, I don't want to call it, it was never like confirmed, but it was covered by like some outlets that I don't know how reputable they were. And that sort of stuff, it just catches up with you, and you got to have a team that will pull through in the, it's like, I keep making the joke. The Mavericks have been in Miami for 3 days. Like one of two things is going to happen. Kyrie is going to be coming out playing like a whirling dervish. And if you don't know why I'm saying that, I'll just say that I'm going to stop talking. Luca might have a great, or they're going to look terrible. Like, they're going to either destroy the Heat or they're going to roll over and die. There is no in between. And then they play the Hawk. Like, it's just, this is such a frustrating season. Such a frustrating season.
It's good turn.
Well, thank you for taking part of your day and hanging out with me.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Have a good one, y'all.
All right. Bye, Matt. Matt is the man. I know you guys don't like his Twitter presence, but he's a fun guy. I like Matt, one of my good friends. All right. Frangel, you've been waiting forever. Thank you so much. I hated seeing you in the chat there. I'm like, oh, God, I got to bring him up. What's going on?
No worries. I'm doing good. How about you?
It's Friday. I don't have to cover a basketball game tonight, and then the 2 games this weekend start early. So I'm okay, all things considered.
Well, since this has been a pretty negative therapy session, I want to put some positive. I don't know if you could see the link that I put it on the Basketball Index link, the Twitter page.
Yep.
But they were showing a chart of all of the rookies and who is the best pick and roll ball handlers and who can create the best it's like shot presence or something like that.
So
and
I'm pulling it up, and
list,
people in the chat can see it.
Yep. So if you click on
the video, can see it.
I think if you click the second image there, it'll be more clear for people on YouTube. But if you look at the very top, so up is good, right is good. So if you look at all the way to the top and all the way to the right, you'll see among rookie wings and guards, it's
Jaden
Hardy.
Okay.
Jaden Hardy is one of the best shot making and pick and roll ball handlers. And that's actually such a good thing. Like, I know last couple of years you've been talking about how the Dallas Mavericks haven't been able to develop players, haven't been able to draft good players, but seeing stats like these, this really is encouraging that maybe they found something. Maybe I don't know if it's just maybe him getting minutes. I don't know, maybe if it's the 1 year in the G League that helped him out, because he was supposed to be a pretty early draft pick, if I remember correctly, right? When he was coming out of high school.
Highly ranked recruit. And then he played so badly in the G League, he basically lost all juice to the point to where I think if there were a redraft, the Mavericks they were going to take him had they not traded for Wood with that pick.
Mm-hmm.
He probably should have gone in the top 25 if we're, even based on last season. So it's him and his development is one area where I think Jason Kidd actually deserves some credit. We had the guy in here earlier who mentioned he's really frustrated that Hardy had 21 DMPs. Look, when the Mavericks are still trying to make the playoffs, they're not going to give a rookie 15 minutes. He has to earn his minutes, and he did earn his minutes. You go quarter by quarter, he plays a little more every quarter, and the fact that they got him now in the final stretch run playing minutes matters, and I'm grateful for that. That is one big thing.
Yeah, I honestly, one of those things, and I think it's kind of been a weird dichotomy where we thought maybe at the beginning of the year it was going to be Josh Green and then Jaden Hardy was going to come in later. But I feel like it's kind of been the opposite, where Josh Green started off the year hot, but it's felt like at least he's kind of fallen off, and it's been Jaden Hardy who's really picked it up. And I don't know why that's happening.
Well, to me that has to do with pedigree. Hardy had played a ton of basketball in his life. He knows what to do. It's a matter of figuring out how to do those things at the NBA level. Josh Green was terrible for 2 years. And anybody that tells me otherwise, I'm going to yell at them. He was bad. I'm sorry. He just was. And this year he has come in looking like a new man at stretches. Now we've seen his confidence wax and wane, but overall I've been extremely pleased with the development, because I have mentioned on this show, I thought Josh Green was not an NBA player. And so comparatively, I'm so happy with what Josh has given the team, even though it's been kind of lately. Over the course of the year, like I feel like I hope they're going to sign him to a second contract. So I'm pleased with that.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things where Luca just got too good too quickly. So if there were players better, Dallas couldn't get them because they had to go on win now mode so early. It's similar to what happened to the Cavs when they had like young LeBron.
Absolutely.
By his second year, they had won 50 games. It was absurd. So they had to try to go on win now mode. I think the one positive is at least no one wants to go to Cleveland. Like people, like even if you were a player back then and you thought, man, LeBron, he's going to be the next big guy. No one wanted to live in Cleveland. Dallas is at least a place where I think players will say, I can live in Dallas. So I think that's one of the things that I don't know if the front office can convince guys, but I think that's one advantage that I think the Mavericks can do better than those LeBron squads, is that they can actually get people to come into Dallas, because players want to play. I'm sure players want to play with Luca, but it's also not a bad location to be in. So I think that's a big advantage for the Mavs, and hopefully it's something that they can take advantage of in the next couple of years, because I think Luca's prime is about to come up here in the next like 2 or 3 years. So
well, with how good he is, Luca's extended prime had we could make a strong argument for Luca's prime beginning in his second year in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to make all NBA this year, I think, which will be the 4th time in a row. He's not going to make first team this year, and I don't think he should, but he's such a talented player. And this is going to be such, it's why we started off the show talking about like the concept of whether they need the draft pick or not, because I think if they fall out either, and that's going to happen organically if they fall out and they end up with like keeping the pick, that gives them a little bit of flexibility to do something immediately. I think if they miss out on the pick, they have to re-sign Kyrie. And then at that point, you're paying Kyrie and Luca a combined, I think, in the neighborhood of $90 million next year. You don't have cap room. There's nothing to do there. It's, and they could maybe sign somebody into some of the space and sign him over going, but Cuban's appetite for being in the tax and paying a bad team is probably pretty low. He won't come out and say it, but I wouldn't want to pay for a crappy team either. It's just, he's the reason the team is not super great. So they have a lot that, these next like 4 weeks are going to determine the next 3 years.
Right. Even if they don't make the playoffs, which is looking less and less likely, one thing is that it looks like this draft class is a really strong draft class. So if they're able to get into the top 10, I think they could get someone that's going to be a really big piece for the future. So hopefully we'll get to see that in the next couple of years. So
yeah,
that's all I had.
Well, thank you for joining us. Appreciate you.
No worries.
Okay, so before we get out of here, I wanted to go over one thing that I saw on the Blue Wire Network. It was something that I'm not leaving us on a negative note, but it made me laugh. So I'm going to present this. We're going to go take a look at it. It is from the Road Trippin' Podcast. Okay, Kendrick Perkins went on the Road Trippin' Pod. If you don't know what the Road Trippin' Pod is, it is that podcast with a couple of former Cavaliers. Let's go. Who all is in this? Oh yeah, it's Richard Jefferson and Channing Frye. Duh, I knew that one. So all right, I got the volume turned up, so hopefully we'll all be able to hear this. Let me do. Where did it go? There we go. All right.
In one word, right? If you could describe the Mavericks in one word right now, what would it be? And do they play past the regular season? What does that mean for Kyrie and Dallas?
They are down like a Honda on 4 flats.
This is killing me.
The Honda is already sitting low, so imagine it on 4 flats. I don't really know if Luca could really pair up with another superstar like that. I'm watching his bad body language. I never see him be encouraging. I always see him pouting, and it's not just to the officials. It's like somebody missed a shot, and it's just like, oh, Dallas is done. I don't believe that they even get into the play-in tournament, to be honest with you. And I think Kyrie bounces. I think he leaves.
I of course. Just thanks so much for that, Draymond. Kendrick Perkins. I don't think Kyrie leaves. The money's going to be too rich. I think some of the other stuff he might have had a fair point on, but I do think Kyrie and Luca can play together. The offense is amazing. Oh man. Well, so we play tomorrow night. Against Miami Heat. So if you guys haven't yet, please go subscribe to the show. I'll post the link to the live show, the general time frame of when I want it to be, probably at some point tomorrow. You'll be able to click and get notified for when we go live. I hope you guys had fun. I didn't mean to go for an hour and 20 minutes, but I like talking basketball with you people. Great times. Please subscribe and leave comments. My man Leo mentioned that earlier. Like, leaving comments and liking stuff that we post helps. It becomes like a positive feedback loop. So I need y'all's help. Listen to the show on Blue Wire. If you haven't, at least give us a download, play it in the background. Thanks so much for spending part of your Friday with me, and I will see you guys tomorrow on Saturday. Go Mavs.